Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswatyai Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadgurum Brahmavidvaram Neelambujashya Malako Malangam Sita Samaropitavamabhagam Parno Mahasayakacharuchapam Namami Ramam Raghuvamshanatham Atulita Baladhamam Hemashailaabhadeham Danujavana Krishanum Jnaninaamagraganyam Sakala Guna Nidhanam Vanaranamadhisham Raghupati Priya Bhaktam Vatajatam Namami. After the Śrī Rāma Gita in Aranyakanda, we saw the episode of, or the story that begins with, Shurpanakha's arrival in Panchavati. Shurpanakha is Ravana ke Bahini, the sister of Ravana. And she arrives, and immediately upon arriving, she sees Bhagavan and Lakshman, and she is immediately filled with desire, and she wants to marry them. She doesn't mind whom, she'll take either one. Bhagavan says, I'm already married, here's my wife, Sita ji. He says, my younger brother is also here. Lakshman says, if you marry me, I'm a servant, so you won't have any luxuries, any comforts. You should marry him. Between Bhagavan and Lakshman, they keep sending her back and forth. And finally, she gets very angry because Lakshman says, listen, the only person who will marry you is that person who has given up all shame in this world. And with that anger, she assumes her true form. And seeing that, Sita ji is very scared now. Bhagavan gives Lakshman a sign, and Lakshman cuts off her nose and ears. So this is where we had seen up to doha 17. Now, just a little bit, even though the sort of symbolism of this story is, you can understand it in chunks, but all of these things which will happen from now onwards are related, because you have Shurpanakha, you have her two brothers, Kara and Dushan, who we'll see today, and then you have Ravan, and how they are all interacting with Bhagavan, Lakshman and Sita ji. There is a much deeper meaning in all of this. So we know in the Ramayana that Bhagavan represents knowledge. Sita ji represents devotion, bhakti. And Lakshman represents vairagya, or dispassion, detachment. Okay? These are these three. Now, if we look at Shurpanakha is symbolic of desire, kama. And what is seen here, one is that if we have too much desire, that desire will strip away all boundaries of right and wrong. Desire can become so powerful that it makes us forget what is appropriate, what is within the bounds of our dharma, and what is not. If desire is so strong, then what will happen is we'll be ready to do anything. We'll be ready even to break laws. The laws of the country, but also the laws of dharma, we are ready to transgress for the sake of desire. And the only way to deal with desire is with vairagya. Where there is dispassion, where there is detachment, that desire will not be able to enter into that mind where there is detachment. And where does detachment come from? If you look at how Lakshman is in this Ramayana, right? What is Lakshman's character? What is Lakshman's, in fact, sole purpose? Which he himself stated at the beginning of Shri Rama Gita. His sole purpose is to leave everything behind and to serve God. If we have such an intention in our mind, then we will be able to develop dispassion from the desires which otherwise are created by our likes and dislikes. Right? If my sole purpose is to serve the Lord, then I have the strength to ignore distractions, mental strength that is required. And this is what Lakshman is demonstrating here. Okay? That Shurpanakha comes, Lakshman is the one to defeat her. And the first place that we see likes and dislikes or desire expressing is in the sense organs. We have 5 sense organs through which we perceive this world. Right? The eyes, nose, ears, tongue, and skin. These 5 are our means for perception of all the objects of this world. And the first place where we see desire residing, there are others also, but the first is in the senses. And so when Lakshman cuts off her ears and nose, she needs her eyes and her tongue for the rest of the story, because she has to go to Ravana and she has to go to Karadushan and tell what's happened. But this cutting off of the senses is how we, at first, how we conquer desire. Right? If you are really habituated to something and you want to let go of that thing, the first thing is to not even make sure that it comes into contact with your senses. For example, some people really struggle with avoiding sweet things, right? So what do? If you, for example, you take the resolve that, okay, from today is Monday, or one day, or 1 week, I will not have anything sweet. You don't go to the shop and fill up your kitchen with sweet things and then say, okay, but I'm not going to eat any cakes or biscuits or anything chocolate. You do the opposite. You look in your kitchen and you take out all the sweet things and you give them to someone. You say, you eat. I'm not having any. So you make sure that thing you don't even see, you don't even smell, right? It's not available for your senses. Then that thought can be removed from the mind. So the first place that we have to be disciplined is in our senses. The other thing to note here is that now all fighting and Ravana and so many things will happen in the story. But before this all happens, this Śrī Rāma Gita is coming in this particular place in the story, in this particular point, for a reason. And that reason is, before we have to face anything in this world, the most important thing is for us to be grounded in a right understanding. When Arjuna says to Shri Krishna in the battlefield, the Mahabharata, that, oh Krishna, my body is trembling, the Gandiva is slipping from my hand, I can't stand upright. Krishna doesn't tell him, Arjuna, listen, just fight, and then after the war is done, I'll tell you everything you need to know. He says, stop everything. First, you understand the entire philosophy. First, understand everything. And then you can go on and do whatever it is that you need to do. So in life, it's necessary that we act in this world. But to rush out into this world, to act in haste, is a mistake. First, we need to understand everything properly. What we should do, what we shouldn't do, what our attitude and action should be. What is the truth in life? What is the aim of life? And then, having understood all of those things, if we go then and act, then there won't be any problem. But if we don't understand those things and then we rush out into this world to try and act and achieve, then our action will cause more problems than it will bring about any solution. So teaching always comes first. This is why, when people see that any young person is becoming interested in spirituality, and generally young person means anyone under the age of 50. You see them getting interested in spirituality, they get very shocked, worried, whatever you want to call it. At such a young age, why are you so interested? You should be out and enjoying the world. The earlier actually that it comes, the earlier that we understand all of this, the better. Having lived our life and done so many things, it's still helpful later, but it's more helpful earlier. That's all. Okay. So now the nose and ears have been cut off of Shurpanakha, and now she goes to her two brothers. Now this Shurpanakha is looking really terrible. Okay. Naka kana binu bhai bikarara, without nose and ears. And you can just imagine, anyway, her Rakshasi form is so terrible. And now minus ears and nose, and probably with, blood streaming, etc. You don't even want to imagine. You can if you want. How does she look? Janu Srava Saila Geru Ke Dhara, like a mountain with rivers of, Geru means like that ochre color, right? That sort of reddish orange brown, as though a mountain has streams of this ochre just flowing down. Now she goes crying to Karandushana. Karandushana pahikai bilapata. Means like wailing and crying and very dramatic. Dhiga dhiga tava paurusha balabhrata. Your manhood is useless, O brothers. For what use are you even born as men? She is saying. Your manhood and your strength. So now they look at each other. What happened to you? So they ask her now. Tehi pucha, what happened? And she, sabakehesi bujhai, she tells everything in detail. Means she's probably adding some her own thing. Some people can't tell a story just how it happened. They have to add something. So she tells in great length, great detail. Now they hear what happened, and now here it's not said what she told them, but later Tulasidasa will tell us what she says to Ravan, but here she doesn't. Jatu dhana suni sena banai. Now, hearing this, they start assembling their army, Khara and Dushana. And now all sorts of, I don't know, they must have put out some sort of notice. I don't know how. Nowadays you send a message, everybody on your WhatsApp can see. Or send some email. So some call they must have given. All the Rakshasas start coming. Now they all start running there. Janusapachaka Jalagiri Jutha, like so many mountains are rushing there in that place. In other words, these Rakshasas are not some like small, just harmless with some sharp teeth or something. Huge Rakshasas, like mountains. Nana Vahana, on various vehicles. Nana Kara, in so many forms they have. Nana Yudha, so many weapons. Dhara Ghora Apara, and they're so terrible to look at. Surpanakha Age Karinini, now just imagine, in front of this whole host of terrible looking demons. Surpanakha is there at the front. And how is she? Asubharupa, Shruti Nasa Hini. Without her nose and ears, she looks very, literally inauspicious. And now, very interesting. Asaguna Amita Hohi Bhayakari. On their way, they are seeing so many bad omens. Now, this omen business, there is actually there is a sort of knowledge tradition that tells you how to, one, recognize and two, interpret omens. Nowadays, what our bad omens are, some black cat will go under a ladder, some such thing, right? But they had this sort of learning about what are the different omens, auspicious, inauspicious, and how to recognize them. Now here, so many inauspicious things are being seen and heard. Ganahina mrityu bibasa sabajhari. They are not paying attention to any of them because they are all mrityu bibasa. They're all in the grip of death. In other words, they're acting in such a way that is assuring their destruction. Right? Actively having hatred for Bhagavan, even though Bhagavan's compassion has no end, that we'll see. But cultivating hatred for God will lead to death, either literally or even metaphorically also. So they don't notice anything that is happening around them. This happens to us also. When we're in the grip of desire, you won't see anything around you. You'll just, how can I achieve how can I fulfill my desire? We don't see anything else. Am I hurting someone? Is somebody being badly affected by what I'm doing? Nothing. So they're moving like this. Garja hitarjadhi gagana udahi. They are shouting and making so much noise and jumping in the air, flying in the air. Dekhi kataku bhata ati harashahi. And Khara and Dushana look at their army and they feel so happy. Look at what great Rakshasas we have in our army. Now, what are they saying? Ko kaha jiyata dharahu dvau bhai. Now we should capture those two brothers, jiyata, alive. And dhari marahu tiya lehu chadai. We should, then once we've captured them, we can kill them and we can take the tiya, means the woman. So the intention is to kill, the intention is to destroy. Dhuri puri nabha mandala raha. Now this whole, all the earth and the sky, etc., is filled with dust. Because they're making so much noise, right? And they're walking in such a way that all the dust is being raised. Now Bhagavan sees this and Rama bolai anuja sanakaha. Bhagavan calls Lakshman and he says to him, now you take Sita ji to some mountain cave. Ava Nisichara Kataku Bhayankara, this very terrible whole army of Rakshasas is coming. So you take her there. And rahehu sajagat. Remain alert. Remain on your guard. Suni Prabhu kai bani. Now Lakshman hears Bhagavan's words. Chale sahita Shri Saradhanu pani. He goes with Sitaji with his bow and arrow in his hand. He's also ready. Dekhi Rama Ripudala chali ava. Now Bhagavan sees this Ripudala. This whole group of enemies coming. What does Bhagavan do? Bihasi. Bhagavan smiles. Kathina ko danda chadhava. And he strings his bow. Okay, now here, just before we see the chandas, a little bit to think about. Surpanakha is ka, right? Desire. Khara, khara literally means, here, khara means kathina, that which is very harsh or hard or cruel even. And dushana means the one who sees defects. Now, what happens when our desire doesn't get fulfilled? Usually when desire doesn't get fulfilled, as Bhagavan describes in the Gita, kamat krodhu bhijayate. When desire is obstructed, anger arises. And when we become angry, we become very cruel and harsh, and we start seeing faults. We start seeing what is wrong, even when there is nothing wrong. So now Surpanakha, this desire of hers has not been fulfilled. In fact, she's been insulted. What is the result of that? Now there is all this cruelty and there is this dosha darshana, means the seeing of faults in khara and dushana that has been awakened. Now when these things arise, what has to be protected? When these thoughts arise in our mind, what has to be protected? Bhakti has to be protected. Our devotion. And who protects devotion, or what protects our bhakti? Our vairagya will protect bhakti. Bhagavan is telling Lakshman, you take Sitaji and you keep her safe. Why? Because who protects devotion? Who protects love? Dispassion. So, these are some things for us to see and to think about here. Okay. One very beautiful thing is said, that when we become very harsh, cruel towards Bhagavan, it's generally because we've become very soft towards the world. What is required is actually the opposite. If we want to retain that softness for Bhagavan, okay, if we want to be humble and loving towards God, what we require is a little bit of hardness towards the world. We have to become just a bit strict and we have to maintain that boundary. If we're always giving in to the world, and when we say the world, it doesn't necessarily mean external. Okay? If we're always giving in to our own desires, and if we're always giving in to our own ego, if we become soft towards our desires and our ego, we will become hard towards Bhagavan. If we become hard towards our desires and our ego, in other words, if we're able to say no, then we can become soft towards Bhagavan. So, this khara and dushana, this is where this hardness towards Bhagavan has come, and ultimately they will be defeated. But the instigator for that sort of feeling towards Bhagavan is desire. The more room we give for desire to grow in our mind, the more dangerous it becomes. Desire for God is helpful. Desire for the world, that leads us away from God. Now Bhagavan sees this enemy coming. He smiles. Bhagavan is not going to start crying, right? He's not going to get worried and say, oh my God, what's going on? He smiles. This. Remember we had seen at the beginning that Aranyakanda is where we see Maya Vilas, right? We see all the expression of Maya in so many different ways. Bhagavan's smile is also that. So he smiles. And now Bhagavan he stands, Kodanda Kathinaka Chadhai. He strings this bow, and Sira Jata Juta Bandhata. He ties his hair by now he's got long hair. So he ties it up. And now how does he's shining now. So hakyo. He is shining how? Very interesting example now Tulasida is giving. Marakata sayala para larata damini koti so juga bhujagajyo. It's as though there are two snakes which are fighting on top of a mountain of emerald. And who are they fighting with? With so many like streaks of lightning. Damini Koti. So now how Bhagavan is described as this mountain of emerald, right? This is his body. And his hair is shining. It's like golden almost, like streaks of lightning. And his arms are like two snakes as he's tying his hair up. Such a nice picture, an interesting picture Tulsidasi builds. Then Kati Kasi Nishanga, so he ties the quiver of arrows around his waist. Bisala Bhuja, with his long arms. Gahichapa Bisika Sudharike. Now he picks up his bow and he arranges his arrows. Chitavata Manahu Mrigaraja Prabhu Gajaraja Ghata Niharike. Now he looks at all the Rakshasas, how, like a Mrigaraj, like a lion, would look at Gajaraj, at an elephant. So Bhagavan is like a lion, and all the Rakshasas are like herds of elephants. Bhagavan is ready. You think you can defeat me? Come and see. He looks. Ai gaye bagamel dharahu dhawata subhata jatha bilokya kel bala ravihi gherata danuja. Now they all come running, all these Rakshasas, saying, capture him, and how, like all the demons come to surround the sun. So now here, in the English book there is a note to explain what Tulsidasi is saying here. There is this story in I think it comes in the Veda. And this story is particularly told to those who offer the Gayatri mantra along with the Sandhya Vandana prayers, so the prayers that are done in the morning. Certain prayers have to be said, and then Gayatri mantra. And what is said is, when the sun is rising, right? Not when it's already up in the sky. When it's just rising above the horizon, and it's still in that very soft form, at that time, there are these particular demons. They're called these Mandeha demons. And they jump, because the sun appears to be very close to the earth, they jump up to try and cover or capture the sun. And so what is said is that when somebody holds water in their palm and chants the Gayatri mantra, and then that water is offered, that water it has the power to dispel those rakshasas. They will get burnt or whatever by that water, and that they won't be able to capture the sun. And therefore, all these people who are initiated into Gayatri Mantra are told it's very important that you do these prayers, otherwise sun will get captured, right? Because normally Gayatri Mantra is given to small children, so you have to give them a reason to chant every day. They're told this story. Now, even here there is this great significance. And that is when our spiritual longing, either in the form of longing for God or longing for knowledge, when it first rises, it's very delicate. It's not yet strong. It's not yet sturdy. And therefore it has to be protected. Would you agree that I used to give the example of, like, if you have one small sapling, right? Very young, tender plant that will grow into a huge tree. But when it's small, you can't just plant it and leave it. Right? You have to create that boundary around it so that nobody can go close to it. And if the trunk needs support, then you have to give support. So sometimes you tie another stick, right, next to the trunk so that trunk is supported. So now this sun means our knowledge or devotion. When it's just rising, then that's when all these other contrary thoughts start arising in our mind. So why should I spend time in study or in devotion? Not from anybody else's mind necessarily, but from our own mind, these doubts start coming. What's the use of this? Everybody else in the world seems to be very happy and they're just pursuing their desires. So maybe I shouldn't pursue this desire for knowledge or for devotion. And what's required is we have to protect that desire. We have to protect that longing for the higher with all our practices and our disciplines. And the firmer we become in our practices, the more protected that desire for the higher it remains. So now all these Rakshasas, they think, oh, we'll defeat Bhagavan because he's standing there and he appears to be alone. And of course, that will not happen. But we have to see the same internally, right? Say, even by mistake, not intentionally, but by mistake, you make some small space for God in your heart. Bhagavan comes there. Then what will happen? Everything else which you keep inside, they'll start fighting for that space. Why have you allowed Bhagavan to come and sit here? This is our space. So we have to be really careful that we keep that space available and free. So everybody rushes towards Bhagavan. But now something very interesting happens. They all look at him, but they are completely unable to actually release any weapons. Prabhu biloki sara sakahi nadari, thakita bhai, rajanichara dhari. They become as though stunned and they're unable to actually fight with him. Now Kara and Dushan realize that, okay, we can't fight him in the usual way. What should we do? And now even they praise Bhagavan. They say, this Bhagavan, Yahako Nripa Balaka Narabhushana. He is an ornament among men. We have never seen anyone like him. They say, Dekhi nahi asi sundaratai. We've never seen such beauty. who is saying even Karan Dushan. That means even these demons can get attracted to Bhagwan's beauty. This is also possible. Now, Jadyapi Bhagini Kinhi Kurupa, even though our sister has been made deformed like this, Badhalayaka Nahi Purusha Anupa, he doesn't deserve death. We shouldn't kill him. So now what should we do? They say, they call someone and they say, listen, deliver this message to him. What is the message? Give us the woman that is with you, and both you and your brother can return back to where you came from. This is what they say. So now message goes to Bhagwan, and Bhagwan smiles. And he says, Hama Chhatri Mrigaya Bana Karahi. Bhagwan says to this messenger, listen, we are warriors. We hunt in these forests. And people like, or not people, but Rakshasas like you, Tumase Khala Mriga Khojate Phirai. We are looking for Rakshasas like you when we go hunting. Bhagwan is saying, you come here for a fight, you will get a fight. Don't now say that, okay, we can return home without fighting. This is what you came for. Ripu Palavanta Dekhi Nahi Darahi. Even seeing some strong enemy, we don't get scared. We are Jadyapi Manuja Danuja Kula Ghalaka Munipalaka Khala Salaka Balaka. Here you start to see those we've been seeing, but Tuladasi's poetry also, right? Jadyapi Manuja Danuja Kula Ghalaka Munipalaka Khala Salaka Balaka. He says, we are, even though we are here as men, as human beings, we are here to destroy all demons. We are here to protect all munis, Munipalaka. And Khala Salaka, we are here to eliminate all wicked people, even though we are Balaka, even though we are very young. Now, he says, if you don't want to fight, you go home. I will not turn my back to you on the battlefield. I'm not going to show compassion. I'm not going to turn back. Khara and Dushan hear this message when it comes back to them from Bhagwan, and Ura Ati Dahe, they start burning from inside. And now the fight will begin. But even in this fight, something very interesting happens. Bhagwan does something. And here you realize actually that, you know, when we talk about God's love and God's compassion, really there is no condition attached. Bhagwan is not compassionate or loving for any reason. He is that way because that's his nature. He won't be hateful even to such demons. Okay, so we'll see next time. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om.